Happy Sabbath and good day to all, wherever or whenever you listen and watch this video. Here in Nevis, today it is the 19th of January, Sunday, one day before Donald Trump, the destroyer, as I explained to you, will be inaugurated in the US. And then we will see what comes to fulfillment while he is reigning the world, almost the world, in his term. We are heading to the end, definitely. And we saw Los Angeles burning, and we saw drones flying all over the world. And believe me, it's not mine. They are the small ones. And we saw just in this night a video about an egg that supposedly is an extraterrestrial object. And there are a lot of people, Christians, that wake up to what this guy, who was a helicopter pilot, said about the retrieval of this object in this little video that is really not so clear for me what it really was. But he said that he was or is still possessed. And I think this is remarkable. So when you see any egg object that, according to him, is about 6 meters big, then I would suggest that you do not go very near to this object. So I can only hope that you watched my video series at least beginning with the one about the Jubilee, because we will come full circle in this video about all the teachings since this video series. Also extremely important, of course, is the loosening of the four winds and all the other parts of this video series about the end that lead up to the loosening of the four winds. Go to our Telegram channel, subscribe there, and then go back and look what my videos have been. When I was finishing my video series, and I have to say that in the very beginning of this video, which is a conclusion and an enhancement to the loosening of the four winds, when you have watched very carefully my video series, then you understood that I did not know in all the video series about the heart sign. Brother Ray made a video about it. Brother Gerhard, the second witness, made a video about the heart sign, painted since the 8th of April 2024 through the comet G3. And this heart sign is really a gift of God. It's a blessing. It is the love of God. Normally we should give our hearts to the Lord, right? And this time the Lord gives his heart to us. And in this heart we see the birds. And he speaks to us and says, leave Babylon before it is too late, so that you do not receive of her plagues. And these plagues have already begun. And it is definitely when Donald Trump was confirmed president that fell exactly into the time frame in the G3 painted heart top, when Donald Trump was confirmed on the 6th of January to be president of the US by the Electoral Committee. I'm not an expert in these political things, but I know that it is necessary to confirm the president by the chamber or whatever it is, and this was done on the 6th of January. That was shortly after the moment when sun and moon came together in the heart top of the heart sign. And this is in my video series. I showed you, I believe it was in last countdown part 2, I showed you exactly when the bowls of wrath will be poured out. And it's always first the moon comes into the hand of Orion, and then it goes one trajectory around, but we have to watch at the moment when it comes to the sun. And then the bowl is poured out, because then we have a empty astronomical new moon. I explained all that. I showed you also the points of the 7 bowls of wrath when they are poured out. And we had such a first bowl of wrath on the 6th of January, around that time. And then it happened. Yeah? Donald Trump was certified. And shortly afterwards, he was declared definitely to have the ulcers, because he was finally, and without any possibility of appeal, he was then a sentenced criminal. He did not get any fines, or he did not go to jail as his enemies would want, but he is now forever the first president in the US who takes a term without being having a white vest, but he is a black, stained, ulcered criminal. The ulcers in Isaiah 1 are described to belong to those that are criminals. And Isaiah 1 says also that it is from the toes to the head. Yeah? It is from the bottom up. A nation, the US, is a nation that is completely wretched. Yeah? I do not want to say the hard words. You can read the Bible by yourself and read what Isaiah said about the Jewish nation. This is now, in our days, was a type for our days, the US. And now the head is the second part, up from the toes to the head. All ulcers, all wounds that are not healing, criminals. Yeah, and yeah, this is a criminal nation has a criminal president. And I showed you in my videos that he fulfilled in his first term clearly the role of the destroyer, Abaddon and Apollyon. And here we are now. Tomorrow he will be starting his second term. And there was a pause, and I explained to you also why there was a pause, and this pause was clearly because we prayed in 2016 that in his first term he would not act out his role as the destroyer. We did not know these things at that time, but we prayed for more time so that the 144,000 would be able to be sealed. And this is also, I explained to you, done by Jupiter in 12 years, going through all the constellations of the 12 tribes. I can only counsel you to watch my videos to have the full view. So we also talked in one of these videos about the 2 witnesses, and we had there a lot of time frames. Yeah? Revelation 11, the 2 witnesses prophecy, is one of the most difficult and challenging prophecies of all the Bible, of the whole Revelation at least. Yeah? And so many people always marvel, who are these 2 witnesses, and they have to appear in Jerusalem, and, but they do not see that the book of Revelation is highly symbolical. When they talk about these 2 witnesses appear in Jerusalem, that means it is in the main city of Judaism. Modern Judaism is Christianism, so it must be anywhere. These 2 witnesses must appear amidst the Christians. Yeah. So, and it's a movement. 2 witnesses is a movement, and this movement has started with a movement in the 1800s after the Great Disappointment. Yeah? 1844, when everybody believed Jesus would already come. But there was a movement that reinaugurated the Sabbath. So it was then the Adventist pioneers, or not only Adventist pioneers, it was also pioneers of Methodists. There were other that started to keep the Sabbath, and they re-encountered the Sabbath. That's the Sabbath pioneers. That's the witness of Jesus, who is the Lord of the Sabbath, according to his own words. And they reinstituted the knowledge about the importance of keeping the Sabbath. So they are now dead, and therefore they belong to the non-reproachable church of Smyrna, the martyrs, the dead Christians, but their testimony follows them. Revelation 14. And who follows this? Again, Sabbath keepers. The Adventist Church itself has fallen 2 times already. It's terrible. What has happened to the Adventist Church is a story. I was talking about that many, many times. They are fully in the hand of Satan, and who follows a conference church. And I do not speak about external fringes, that are faithful, but they do not have the prophetical knowledge. They did not develop like David Gates or Pastor Henriquez, Andrew Henriquez. They are good Adventists, and they are not part of the General Conference anymore. They have separated, but they have not the full view, because they always say the spirit of prophecy is Ellen G. White. Ellen G. White, yes, she had the spirit of prophecy, Revelation 19. She had the spirit of prophecy, and she was accompanying the early Adventist church for long years, since 1844 to 1915, when she died. But she's dead. Now I ask you, is the Spirit of God who gives the gift of prophecy dead? Did the Holy Spirit die? Of course not. The Holy Spirit was given to others. After Ellen G. White came others. There was great pastors like M.L. Andreasen, who brought up the complete understanding, or at least a more developed understanding of the sanctuary doctrine, that is now starting to come up in some Christian fringes again. He was a faithful pastor. He lost even his pension. He was kicked out, as so many nowadays of faithful pastors of the Adventist Church, because he says the truth. And then came Wieland and Short, and they repeated the message of 1844 that other Adventists, pioneers, had, but they were refused. The Holy Spirit tried all the time to influence people and to give them more knowledge. Ellen G. White, so propagated by David Gates, Andrew Henriquez, so propagated. She herself said, we have many things to unlearn, and we have still many things to learn. There will be new light. And the leaders will understand this new light as something dangerous, and they will refuse it and then kick it out. Kick it away, as they did with me in 2010. Okay, we're still here. You cannot quench the Spirit. The Spirit always, the Spirit of life, searches different ways to give life, and to give life to a church. We know from the Bible that a church or a people without prophecy dies, perishes. So what happened since 1915? If Ellen White died, so according to these pastors, Ellen G. White is the living spirit still because of her books that follow her works? Yes, but her books are not complete, because she herself said there comes new light. And this is the reason why we exist, that we are giving this new light. I came from reading these books and I found things that brought me then to the correct Bible study. And this is also what she said, the light comes from the Bible. She is only the lesser light. The Bible is the great light. But you can get inspiration from such scriptures. For example, she said that one day we will know the new name of Jesus Christ, which is a marvelous star. And we will be sealed with that knowledge of this new name. Now you know this new name is Alnitak. You could know it since 2010, when you would have done the Orion study, and you can still do it. So we are here, and I am here, to show you even how our light now that I gave you in all these video series in the last months has developed again. Because we found another comet, this G3 comet, that paints a wonderful heart in the heavens. And this comet was missing in my understanding, so I could not completely decipher what I understood as the pinnacle of understanding, the deciphering of the location of the two witnesses in the heavens. And in the loosening of the four winds, I deciphered clearly through a chiasm what are these points in the heavens and to which constellations in the heavens do belong the four parts of the two witnesses. Yes, they have four parts, because Revelation 11:4 tells us that they are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks, right? So there are four parts. There are two olive trees and two candlesticks. And these are standing in front of the God of the whole earth. So it's a point always in the earth. So the earth circles around the sun in 1 year, one complete circle, one complete orbit. And 4 points of this orbit are important points, extreme points. One is, and there are always 2 times, depending on which hemisphere you live in, one is the equinox points. And the other 2 points are the solstice points, on 2 extremes here and on 2 extremes here. On the equinox point, we have day and night have equal length. This is known since thousands of years. And the same is with the solstice. It's the longest day or the longest night point. And depending on the hemisphere, you have either winter or summer solstice, or you have spring and autumn equinox. 4 extreme and important points. This is where these 2 witnesses stand. And then you can use stellarium and look where are these points today. And these points today have been in the past in different points, because the spring point always moves, and also these solstice points move very, 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 very slowly in thousands of years, but they move. And since Jesus, they have moved. And this is also important in the understanding, comparing, for example, the year 31, when did Jesus rise, when did Jesus be crucified, and so on. When you see these points and you compare it to nowadays, then you find again more wisdom in the deciphering of Revelation that has been seen by the Apostle John, all working out in the heavens. Therefore, we have to look at the heavens, we have to look up to decipher these things correctly. I think this is enough for an introduction, and I want just to tell you that in the last video of Brother Gerhard about the heart sign, we had an idea that perhaps in the pinnacle of the heart, when you see the heart reverted, then in the pinnacle of the heart where Sagittarius is, there could be something like the special ascension of the 2 witnesses. And this looks really, this text, when you read it, this looks really like a rapture, a pre-rapture at least. So I'm talking about Revelation 11:12, and they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. This great voice must be a voice that is given its strength by the sun. Great voices are always sun voices. So the sun is in a special location that makes then the voice of this constellation or this planet or whatever great. So saying to them, come up hither. Where hither? And which is the voice? That's a riddle. All these things are riddles. It's the big Rubik cube, the whole Revelation. You have to bring all the pieces into the right position. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. So there are several points in the Maseroth, which is the 12 constellations around the ecliptic or in the ecliptic that also were known by the old Jews already. So we do not say the other word that is astrology. We are not astrologers, we are biblical astronomers. When we decipher things with the heavens. Yeah? So, and where are these locations? Enemies must be there, a cloud must be there. Yeah. So, and we thought, okay, that looks very much like the area where the center of our galaxy is, where Sagittarius A star, the big black hole with 4 million sun masses is. And this is a cloudy area because there's a lot of dust. So we thought in this time frame, when something plays out in the heart sign in this Sagittarius area, then there could be fulfilled this text with the special ascension. So we tried to figure that out. But okay, today is already the 19th of January. The sun is already in Capricornus, which has also a very important application with the inauguration of Trump, because G3 and the sun is in Capricornus, and we have there 2 horns, a beast that has 2 horns but speaks like a dragon. We have also this fish tail that could allude to the sea monster, the old snake, Satan. Yeah. So, but this only on the side lines. Now, we can, I think, exclude that we, as the Church of Philadelphia, as we believe, have been raptured, because I'm still here and doing this video. So our theory with the 4 heavenly bodies going through the center of the galactic equator, at the Sagittarius A star region, entering into the heart of Jesus. This was mentioned by Brother Gerhard in one of his last videos, but we can exclude this was not the ascension of the 2 witnesses. Now, all the time when we have a theory and then it is proven the theory was wrong, this does not take away the base of the things. Yeah? So we have to again look at the prophecy and more in detail. The whole Revelation 11 has a key, and this key is the location of the 2 solstices and the 2 equinox points, which are the 2 trees, crucifixion of Jesus Christ, Sagittarius A area, the club of Orion, solstice, at least nowadays, and then we have the equinox points in the lying fish, 1 candlestick, Smyrna, the dead church, and then we have another equinox point in Virgo, which is the living church, the virgin church, that has also no reproach. It is Philadelphia. Another candlestick. So this has been now explained in 3 videos. It should be enough to know about how to decipher these things. Go back to the loosening of the 4 winds if you want to watch my explanation of this fact. So we have to look into these areas to decipher the whole Revelation 11 chapter with the secret rapture, or whatever it is, and then also the great earthquake in which 10% of a certain city will die in the same hour. So, and this is exactly where we are now. We are now in front of the fulfillment of these last verses, because then it says, and the second woe is over, which is the 6th trumpet, also explained in my videos, which started with the fall of the Assad regime. And now we can see and that the 6th trumpet had once to do, classical trumpet, with the Ottoman Empire. And then we have articles now that Erdogan of Turkey wants to rebuild in Syria now because of the fall of the Syrian Empire of Assad. He wants to re-erect the Ottoman Empire there, starting with the Kurds there. Yeah. So this is really now still working out since the 15th of December, or a little bit before even, the 1st of December, when K2 comet came into the club of Orion, which I mentioned many, many times, 15th of September, 15th of December 2024 is a very, very, very important date. This started, but it, of course, a third part of mankind did not die, as it was in the corona crisis, that not in one day the whole world was vaccinated. Yeah? So it starts in a certain point. It started in the fifth trumpet, started with a declaration of the pandemic by the World Health Organization, and then the rolling out, the development and the rolling out of the vaccines began, and so on, as I explained also in my videos. And the same is, a woe takes a time. But we know when the ascension of the two witnesses, or respectively their four parts, has happened, then the second woe is rapidly over after the fall of a certain city. And that should at least then give a reason for a loud cry. So, have you ever asked yourself, when I deciphered that in the loosening of the four winds, have you ever asked yourself, why are these 4 points two witnesses? Not because it's 4 and 2, this I explained already. Have you ever asked yourself, what have they witnessed? Why are they called witnesses? They are points, yeah? Or they are constellations at a certain time. Yeah. So Sagittarius has today a solstice point. Yeah. Like Taurus or Geminis have a solstice point. Like the lying fish in the Pisces has an equinox point, or Virgo has an equinox point. The constellations, there are points in the constellations. Have you ever wondered what they have witnessed? A hint to find out what they have witnessed is in Revelation 11 again, of course. And it is there, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. The street we have deciphered as the ecliptic, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So when they are the witnesses, then they are witnessing something that falls into the witness time frames of nowadays that I deciphered in my video series. And we will see this again for recapitulation and correction in this video. And they must have also witnessed something in Jesus' time, because he has mentioned that they already have been there when Jesus was crucified. Now, do they play a role, or are they time markers of at least the crucifixion of Jesus Christ? So first of all, which day dates of Jesus' life, important day dates, do we know? And I can tell you frankly, it's only our ministry who knows the exact day dates, because I researched it as early as in the year 2010. So here is a list and a table of the day dates that we know exactly. And remember, when I show you later the heavens, we did this completely independently from the heavens and even from these two witnesses and the two trees. Yeah, the two candlesticks and the two trees. We did this completely independently of looking up and putting anything into harmony. We will later check if there are witnesses and how these witnesses show in the heaven that we are right. So the first thing, of course, that started Jesus' life was his birth. And according to the article in LC, Last Countdown, Christmas 2.0 was the title. It was on October 27, 5 BC. When we later go to Stellarium, then we have to put there the year -4, because in Stellarium the year 0 exists, which does not exist in the calendar. So -4 BC, Stellarium is 5 BC. Then Jesus' baptism date of the 4th of September AD 27 was found in the article on White Cloud Farm years later, The Mystery of the Holy City Part 2. I wrote a whole book, The Mystery of the Holy City, and Part 2 includes how we found the baptism date of Jesus Christ. Very interesting chapter, I think. Jesus' crucifixion date was the first date that we ever found. Therefore, it's already in articles of 2010 on Last Countdown, LC, Full Moon at Gethsemane, Part 2. But I counsel you to read also Part 1. Let me remark that I just last week saw a video of a lady, don't know her name anymore. The article caught my attention because so many people have different years, but she had the year 31 correct. She's from any church, not anyhow affiliated with SDA Church. So she had the year correctly, but she could, of course, not reconcile the Friday crucifixion with the year 31. And this is described why this is not so easily possible in Part 1 of Full Moon at Gethsemane. It is simply because the people take not into account the rules, how the year have begun, and you need the barley harvest test to understand how the year begins. And you have also to take into account the equinox. The spring cannot begin before the sun has trespassed the equinox point. And then 14 days later, the moon must be full, of course. So this is exactly the problem, the equinox point, and they have to take into account a barley harvest test that in the year 31, obviously, in the first possibility, failed. And this date taught us then the correct year beginning, and so we can have the other dates correctly, which other congregations do not have, because they never found out the crucifixion date. And then with this, they never found out the true calendar understanding, and therefore they fail finding these dates. So crucifixion date was May 25, AD 31. And the lady had Wednesday as a crucifixion date. This is exactly what I don't like, that if they cannot find it correctly, then they start to change the understanding of the biblical record. We know that Jesus was crucified on a Friday and he resurrected on a Sunday, the first day in Jewish understanding of the week. This is in the biblical record. You cannot change that. Then they miss out also, when they have a Wednesday crucifixion, they miss out also the understanding of what a high Sabbath is, according to John 19:31. A high Sabbath occurs then when a ceremonial rest day, a Sabbath, falls upon a seventh day Sabbath. So this makes it a double Sabbath, a high Sabbath, called only in John 19:31. And therefore, this is where our name comes from, the high Sabbath Adventists, because we understand the calendar. And then we have Jesus resting in the tomb on a high Sabbath, according to the biblical record, in the year 31. And not any other year. So Jesus' resurrection is then easily calculated with the crucifixion date. It must be 2 days later, respectively 3 days inclusive later, which makes it May 27, AD 31. And Jesus' ascension calculates from his resurrection date plus 40 days inclusive, and that gives us July 5, AD 31. So these are the day dates that we know about Jesus' life. But what we never really checked out was, how does this fit together with our understanding of the two witnesses with their 4 parts, with the 2 candlesticks and the 2 trees? And this will be now very interesting, as I think. Let's go to the heavens. So let's check out first Jesus' birthday on the 27th of October, -4 is 5 BC. So the moon was in Virgo, in one of the candlesticks. Look, here is the equinox point. And this equinox point in 2000 years wandered up to here. But in Jesus' year of birth, 5 BC, the equinox point was here, but still in Virgo. So Virgo is one of the candlesticks, one of the candlestick parts of the two witnesses. There was the sun, the other clock hand of the Mazzaroth, of God Father's clock. The sun was in Libra. Does this situation remind you on any Bible verse? I am reminded on Malachi 4:2, which reads, "But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall." So the Son of Righteousness, the sun that is in Libra, which is the balance of righteousness, is of course Jesus. And the sun was just at one extreme point in Libra. The next day, it would have not been the Son of Righteousness anymore. It's the last day, the 27th of October in the year 5 BC. And the moon was in one witness. Why do we not have a tree there involved? A tree is in Orion. The club of Orion is one of the trees, and you will see very soon in the crucifixion scene, you will see why the trees are the trees of the crucifixion. And we have the other tree part on the other side of the galactic equator, which is then in midst of the enemies. It's the Sagittarius A region. So in Sagittarius, of course. So here we do not, at Jesus' birth, he was not crucified. So we have one witness there for the birth of the Son of Righteousness. It's the church. And it is, of course, a virgin shall give birth. This is an old prophecy, of course, of the Old Testament already. The Virgo, the virgin gives the birth. There must be at least one of the two clock hands of God Father's clock, the moon in this case, be in Virgo for the birthday of the Son of Righteousness. But no tree, because he was not crucified at that time. But wait a second. Can we be so sure that Libra has nothing to do with the four parts of the two witnesses? Have a very exact look to the equinox point here in Virgo that has a special symbol. And this symbol is not Virgo's symbol. That's a symbol of another constellation. That's the symbol of Libra. Why is this the symbol of Libra? Let's go again to the biblical text. The text that gave us the hint to research the time of Jesus' crucifixion has another hint inside. It says not only where also our Lord was crucified, but also a street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. The word for street is indeed a different one, or a different meaning. It's in many Bibles, it is translated street, but indeed it is G4113, and that is an open square. And what is an open square? A square is a geometrical form that has four sides, equal sides. But an open square must have open areas between the four sides, so that always there's an open space. How is this to be understood? Therefore, people are confused and they translate open square with street, because they cannot imagine what an open square is. Can we see this? So again, we see here the sign of Libra, but we are in Virgo. Why? Because this equinox point has wandered. From where? Yeah, obviously from Libra. But when has it been in Libra? Yeah, this is the hint with called Sodom and Egypt, or got the name from Sodom and Egypt. These signatures here, they are from ancient times. They come even from after flood times. So, Sodom times. But as we will see it, they come also from Egypt times. And both times are not exactly the same. So before we go on to check out the times that we know from the table of Jesus' time, I want to bring you back to a time far, far away in the past, to Sodom's time. Yeah, and you know all the great Orion cycle study, where we also have found out the times of the great clock of God, that the flood was in 2381 BC, and I did some research with ChatGPT, and then the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah would have occurred approximately 1989 BC. Now, if we take this date and go back to it, 1989, that would be 88. Then where has the equinox point been? Look at that. It has been exactly in Libra. You see? So therefore it has this sign. The Sodomites would have given, the Canaanites, the Sodomites would have given in their time the equinox point the sign of Libra. And this is where it comes from. This naming comes from, spiritually, from Sodom. Yeah? And here we have in the birthday of Jesus, we have in Libra the sun and the moon in Virgo. So it's one side of the open square. But it's open. Let's look where we find the other points. Okay, this fits also. Indeed, this is the sign of Capricornus. Fits also still to Sodom. Okay, here we have an open part. We know that the other equinox point here should be in Pisces, but is not. Where is it? It is in, now we have a problem. It is still in Taurus in Sodom's time, and not in Aries, but this sign here is of Aries. When that would come to Aries, then Sodom was already destroyed. What is about the solstice point? Normally Gemini. Oh, that was in Leo, but has the sign of Cancer. So we have 2 points correct in Sodom's time, but we still need to go forward in time to Egypt's time. Now, what is the most famous date that we know from Egypt? Yeah, of course, it is the Exodus. When did the Exodus happen? It was 1446, and in this case 45, BC, as I showed you in the study about the Great Orion Clock. And what do you see all of a sudden? This solstice point has changed location from Leo to Cancer. And all of a sudden, spiritually, the Egypts have given this sign, the Cancer sign, to their solstice point. And we go back to see if we have now also moved the Aries sign into the right location. From here it was still in Taurus in Sodom's time, but now it has moved in the Exodus time from Egypt, it has moved to Aries. Isn't that incredible? And now when you look at all these things and put together these two possible constellations always, so we have Aries, and today we have it in Pisces. So that's one side of the open square. Nothing in Aquarius, open. Then we have this point, Capricornus, was wandering from here to here in our time, right? So this is the second side of the open square. Then Scorpius, nothing. Then we have Libra. This was then here and was wandering up here in our time. Another, the third side of the open square. Nothing in Leo, but Cancer was wandering now even up to the very, very end of Gemini, the fourth and last side of the open square, nothing in Taurus. But you need two different times, Sodom and Egypt. Let's go forward. The next date in our list is his baptism date, 4th of September, AD 27. So where has the moon been at that date? The moon was exactly in Pisces. In that year, in the year 27 AD, look at that, the point of the equinox was directly in the rising fish. But today, the equinox point is here, exactly where the moon was, in the laying fish. So we are all baptized into the death and into the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The lying fish is the dead fish. The rising fish is the resurrected fish. So we have exactly these two equinox points involved. And Jesus was baptized as an example of our death to sin, and he was resurrected as our example of the resurrection of a new creature without committing sin. So here we have the perfect witness with the moon activated on the baptism day. But where was the sun? And the sun was again in Virgo, and very, very near even to the other equinox point. Yeah? So here we have the first time we have both candlesticks activated. The moon in Pisces and the sun in Virgo, between the two equinox points of these two candlesticks. Incredible, isn't it? We had now the two candlestick points, and now we come finally, we must have the 3 points in Jesus' crucifixion. So now comes the real test, because this is also the date that is mentioned directly in Revelation 11, crucifixion, where also their Lord was crucified. So this is now May 25, year AD 31. And this is exactly here on the galactic equator amidst the enemy constellations, Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, and Scorpius. The Father, Sagittarius A star, marked here in the heart of Jesus. The full moon of Gethsemane shining directly on the crossing of the ecliptic and the galactic equator. So this is something what we found out before, but we did not have the understanding of the equinox and solstice points being the witnesses. Who witnessed this? Yeah, okay, here. Here is the solstice point of Sagittarius in the year 31. Sagittarius, with its solstice point, witnessed the crucifixion of Christ. Yes, and where was the sun? Look at that. In the other tree. We had the tree of the cross of Jesus just seen on one point, on one side of the galactic equator. Now we see the sun on the other side of the galactic equator, but not exactly on the galactic equator, but on Jesus' club. And Jesus' club we deciphered already in the loosening of the four winds as one of the trees. Club is made of wood, and that's the other side of the wood. Another witness of the crucifixion of Jesus is, of course, Orion with his club, the resurrected Jesus, as you will see in a moment. So we have now the activation of the two trees. From now on, the two trees exist exactly from the point on when Jesus was crucified. We have the two trees. Jesus resurrected on the 27th of May. Where has the sun gone? The sun went now directly to the galactic equator, where we have now also the solstice point. In Gemini, what was Gemini witnessing? The resurrection of Jesus, of course. Can you see it? We have a very important Bible verse in Luke 24, which reads, "And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout at the resurrection of Jesus, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments." There are two men, two angels that have witnessed the resurrection of Jesus and reported to the women. And these two men you can see now in the heavens. It's Gemini, the Pollux and the Castor twin. And as incredible it sounds, but you will find them again in another situation in Jesus' life, even after the resurrection. So where was the moon at that time? If we adjust the time correctly to 5 o'clock in the morning or something, so then we have the moon exactly on the solstice point of those days. Exactly. Here's the solstice point, here's the moon, 5 o'clock in the morning of the 27th of May 31. No other year possible. While the sun, as I showed you already, was directly on the galactic equator to Gemini, and Gemini had the solstice point on the other side, while the solstice point of nowadays is here. Orion. Yeah. So we have always the solstice points involved, and we have the candlesticks involved now already as witnesses for most important dates in Jesus' life. Yeah, the last thing to find is what we found the date out is July 5, AD 31 as Jesus' ascension date. Let's go there. Of course, we do not know exactly the time, but it may be in the morning. Yeah, where's the moon? Yeah. The moon is in Gemini again. And here is the solstice point, of course. Now, where is the sun? The sun is in Cancer. Now remember what I told you about where this solstice point got its name from. It got its name from the Egyptians, from their solstice point in Cancer. Therefore, this solstice point carries the sign of Cancer. So indeed, moon and sun stand on the same side of the open square. It is incredible, isn't it? And then, to be sure, we have even, again, two witnesses here mentioned in the biblical text, as I would like to show you in a moment. But give me a second to show you something else before. 10 days later came the Holy Spirit down on Pentecost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we are here. And look where the Spirit comes out of the mouth of Leo, which is the lion of the tribe of Judah, who gives now his spirit to his followers. Cancer is in the old Egyptian mythology the door or the portal from heaven to man. So we have out of the mouth of the lion of the tribe of Judah, of Jesus, comes his spirit, the fire tongues, upon the heads of men. But back to the situation on the 5th of July. As it was with Virgo. In Virgo, we had the sun in Libra, which is the sun of righteousness. In his ascension, when all in his life here on earth had been done, even the 40 days together with the disciples after his resurrection, then everything was done. Then we had, like in the beginning, we have only certain witnesses, like Mary was a witness of the birth of Jesus, the Virgo. So we have here, obviously, Gemini as the witnesses. And there is a clear report about the ascension if you remember. And in Acts 1, verse 10, we have a report, a special report after Jesus was already taken away, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven. As he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. Many say that these two men have been two angels. Now we know, while they were staring up into the heaven and seeing Jesus going up in a cloud, there was two men, Gemini. Yes, there were two men, which are the two parts of the Gemini constellation, the Pollux and the Castor twin. These are the two men that were witnessing the ascension of Jesus in a cloud. Now you can also find out what the cloud is. There's no comet or something at that time, but there is the moon, of course. The moon plays a major role. It must play in this report of the Bible, it must play the role of the cloud. This will become very important when we talk about the special resurrection of the two witnesses later. Here we have two witnesses, no? Two witnesses that witness in the biblical text about Jesus' ascension. We have, of course, the solstice point activating or being in Gemini, while today it is directly in Orion's club. Now relax a minute and let's recapitulate what you have learned so far about the two witnesses in Jesus' time. So the next thought that we could have is, do we have some witness points also in the judgment time? And this is what I want to research with you next. First, again, a table. Now you see here this table, and I used a color scheme, green and blue, to show different time frames. One time, 2 witnesses in the pioneers' time, and then the 2 modern witnesses, which is the story of Revelation 11, or let me say the heart of the story of Revelation 11. While the 2 witnesses story indeed does not begin in Revelation 11. It begins already in Revelation 10 with the little book, because the last verse of Revelation 10 tells these witnesses, or John the witness, that he has to prophesy again. And this again makes the trick. So we know that has been already to the 2 witnesses story in Revelation 11. There has a predecessor. There has something happened before that would foreshadow their prophesying. You know? And this is exactly in chapter 10, the story of the little book that was then sweet in the mouth and bitter in the belly of John the prophet, and then later was fulfilled by William Miller, Samuel Snow, when the 1844 date, supposedly the coming of Jesus, ended with a great disappointment. So I hope you see exactly why I start there, and why before 1844 this time was left out. Chapter 11, the beginning, there's a time that had to be left out, the time of the heathen. This is not part of the story of the 2 witnesses in the pioneers' time and the 2 witnesses in the modern time frame. And the gray part that I have here in my color scheme, this is the unknown part that I want to discover with you in this video. When we talk about the judgment time, of course, we are in 1844, in the beginning of the judgment of the dead. As Paul said, there will be the judgment of the dead and the judgment of the living. In 1844, on the 22nd of October, Christianity, many Protestant churches, because of the Miller movement, and later even of Samuel Snow, who deciphered the exact day of the atonement being the 22nd of October, these groups of people expected the second coming. When we are talking about the 2 witnesses in the judgment time, then we have to start with the judgment. And it began in 1844 on the 22nd to the 23rd of October. But what was the important point there? The important point was not the disappointment. The groups of persons, the Christians, had waited for Jesus until midnight of the 22nd to the 23rd of October, and then they were utterly disappointed that the cloud had not appeared with Jesus on it. And so Hiram Edson, a certain group in the US, with his followers and with his home church, they went into the stable and prayed through the whole rest of the night until the morning hours, and the sun came up, and then they went out still sobbing. And then all of a sudden Hiram Edson looked up into the heavens, and he had a vision, and he saw the heavens open. And he saw Jesus entering into the most holy place for the great day of atonement in the heavens, which still has not ended. And this is the point that is the important point. The morning hours of the 23rd of October, 1844. This is when Jesus is seen in vision entering the most holy place to start the Day of Atonement. So we have to look up what was the heavenly situation there, were there 2 witnesses. The next date that we perfectly know from Adventist history, which is a huge date, and almost every Adventist, if he is an Adventist, knows this date. It was a terrible date. It was it was a good date and it was a terrible date at the same moment. Two witnesses, Wegener and Jones, had been sent through God to the General Conference of 1888. And they had a message that Ellen G. White later called the fourth angel's message. It was the message of the other angel, righteousness by faith, justification by faith message. But the delegates and the elders and the leaders of the church refused this message utterly, which brought Ellen White to terrible sadness, because then she got to know from God that now, because of this refusal of the Holy Spirit in this message, the Adventists would have to walk again in the wilderness many, many, many years. That then added up from the year 1888 until 2008, when I started to understand certain things in the heavens, respectively the deciphering of the man over the river with the duration of the judgment of the dead. I was then, from then on, 2008, together with the other witness, prepared to give this message again in its perfect form, what we do since 15, 16 years. So Wegener and Jones were sent to the General Conference session in 1888, and that was, you can look that up, I put a photo here. It started on the 17th of October. And we have to look up what happened there in the heavens. It's a very, very, very important date in Adventist history. So this concludes then the green marked part, because this is the part that happened in the time, let me say, of the judgment of the dead, for the preparation for this fourth angel's message. There is the third angel's message of Revelation 14 that warns about the plagues. And there is the fourth angel's message that gives a certain loud cry so that many can get out of the Babylonian churches. So what is my most important date, John Scottram? It is, of course, when I started to write the Orion study. And let me shortly say what I found out today, because I have not a very good memory neither. Sometimes. And what I found out researching for the exact date when I started to write the Orion study, it is really incredible what I found in my old files. So indeed, and we wrote about that in the 7 lean years article. There I wrote down the story as I remembered it. And it was so that indeed in 2004 I went to Paraguay. In 2008 I had deciphered the man over the river in Daniel 12, that the duration of the judgment and so on. But it was not until September 2009 that I started to really write about these things. I looked it up. I had reserved the domains for opening a website in August 2009. But I would not start publishing before January 2010. So, and I started to write an article, several little articles, but I did not publish them. And then I started indeed the PowerPoint presentation for the Orion study in September 2009. But I was stuck. I was totally stuck. I had understood the man over the river, the duration of the judgment of 168 years. I had understood Orion as a clock and the 24 elders as the hours around the clock. I had understood all these things, but I was not able to understand where are the clock hands. or the clock hand. Yeah? I did not know how to read that clock. I knew Orion was a clock of God, but I could not understand how to read it. Yeah? I had a duration, but I had not a starting point. I had no clock hand. I did not understand these things. So at that time, a pastor of the Reformation Church in December 2009 invited me for a missionary trip to Brazil, and to get a deeper look into the Reformation Church, if I would, perhaps after having left Adventist Church, if I would convert to them. Yeah. And it was on this trip, and it was around Christmas time. And then we spent Christmas with their families, and they are really fanatics. And I have to say, I did not feel well. My wife did neither feel well. They were very friendly. I don't say anything, but they are really strong fanatics. And so we decided not to spend New Year with them. And so we traveled away, and I have found exactly these dates in my very, very neatly done accounting. I had paid the travel ticket on the 27th of December 2009 back with a bus from Sao Paulo to Asunción in Paraguay. And then indeed, in this travel, in the bus, I was contemplating a little bit. Then God showed me how to position the clock hands in the 4 outer stars coming from the middle star, Al-Nitak. Yeah, Jesus at the right hand of the Father, Al-Nilam. And this came to my mind. And then I understood also the starting point where I would have to start. I would have to start with the white horse rider, the star Scythe. And then I knew I do not have to start on 1844, but on 1846, when Ellen G. White and her husband had decided to keep the Sabbath. So the first time that a Sabbath-keeping church was again on the earth. So this is what came to my mind in the bus travel, but I could not read the other dates on the other clock hands, the 3 other clock hands. And I had no idea about the phone lines neither. So the travel took 35 hours as described in the 17 Years article, and we came home about the 29th. And I was not sure really if on the 29th I read the Orion clock the first time or it was on the 30th. Yeah, this is what I could not remember. And then I was researching hard. I saw then today that my Orion study PowerPoint file was even created already in September. I had started to write down several things there, incredibly. But I was stuck. No? So, but now I could go on. And it was impossible to find in the dates, in the creation date of my files, anywhere the true date, until I came to the map that I had used to read the Orion clock with a transparent paper on my window. I had put this map behind transparent paper, and then I had marked the points to get the year dates. And this file was downloaded by me on the 30th, not on the 29th of December, but on the 30th of December. And this is when I read the first time the Orion clock. This was hard research, but it's important to have this correct data. So it was not the 28th to the 29th, but it was on the 29th to the 30th of December that I read the clock on the 30th of December, had the first time these dates, and then I started to go on with finishing the Orion study so that it could be published then on the 23rd of January 2010, the first time. So we have to look up, when did I start to finish my Orion study, when I was unstuck and could finish it. So then I published this study on the 23rd of January 2010, as everybody should know now. This day happened to be the birthday of the second witness's firstborn son, without my knowing, of course. And of course, I was alone still at that time, but God always sends two witnesses. And 11 months later, on the 23rd of December 2010, I got an email, and I reported about it already in my video series about the Great Orion Cycle and the Jubilee. It was my friend Gerhard Trawiger from Austria who wrote me the first time an email, and therefore we have the exact date and even the exact hour. It was 7 o'clock in the morning when I received it at Paraguayan time. But in the email, and I marked this blue in the email, he wrote when he had started really to investigate about the Orion message, and he said he had worked the last 3 days on it. So that starts on the 21st of December for him until the 23rd, or let me say in the night of the 22nd, he started to write the email to me. And we have to research this exactly at this time frame, the 21st of December to the 23rd of December. And it will be incredible what we will find there. How the second modern witness joined the first modern witness in the Orion message. Yeah, and as it was in the SDA movement that had begun in 1844, with Hiram Edson seeing the heavens open, understanding Jesus would not come, but the judgment had started. So we had also something like this aha moment. Yeah? And this was on the 19th to the 20th of October 2016, when we did our prayer for more time. We had believed that Jesus would come. We did a prayer. And we did this in the setting of the autumn feasts of 2016, Tabernacles. And I woke up in the morning of the 19th of October, and I heard the order of Jesus to make the church pray for more time. He would come, but then the earth would be destroyed and nobody would be saved. No flesh would be saved. So we had to pray for more time fervently in a solemn oath. And this is a part of our movement. And it was the fulfillment of Revelation 7. Yeah? And an angel from the east comes and says to the fourth angel's message, hold, do not. And there is the mentioning of the trees and the earth and so on, the green things. So this is our date. But it's not so that the whole Philadelphia church, our movement, prayed the whole prayer on the 19th. In contrary, we did it only in Paraguay. Then in the evening, I looked that also up in our forum. And in the evening of the 19th, we had published, in the late hours of the 19th, we had published the request that all the church, all our movement members would join in to that prayer. So far, it was only Paraguay that had prayed. And then, starting from the evening of the 19th and then the whole 20th of October, the whole church joined in. No, I would not say the whole church. Some refused, definitely. And they went away. They said, we do not believe anymore. Yeah, you made yourself a clown. Yeah, this prayer is invalid. We did not understand that it was the Revelation 7 fulfillment. But they said, you are not correct in praying for more time. You have been wrong with the coming date, and that's it. The same thing what happened once in the great disappointment to the Millerites. Yeah? And this happened to us in this pivotal date. But on the other hand, it fulfilled prophecy. There was given more time that Jupiter would then be able to complete its round to Gemini, and that will be completed in June 2025. So in the Day of the Witnesses article on White Cloud Farm, we reported about that there's a whole series about our prayer because it is so important, and it started also the new website, whitecloudfarm.org. So to have the date correct, it is the 19th and the 20th, but more the 20th of October, that we did this prayer as a church, as a movement, the High Sabbath Adventist movement. And this will be important when we look up the heavens where have been sun and moon. And are we really the two witnesses part? Do we have part on the story of the two witnesses? Yeah. And then I marked it still with question marks, the ascension of the two witnesses. How does the whole two witnesses story then fulfill finally? Yeah. When is this voice heard, the great voice from heaven, come up hither? When will two churches of the 7 churches of Revelation, when will Smyrna and Philadelphia be raptured before other churches are left and have to go through the hour of temptation on the earth? That will be the great question, and we will answer that in this video. So let's look up the heavens and these 5 dates that are already known to us in the judgment time, the two witnesses in the judgment time. Let's first look at the date when Hiram Edson saw Jesus entering the most holy place, the beginning of the judgment time. So that was the 23rd of October, 1844. And as Hiram Edson tells us, the sun had just risen, and I put ourselves in Buffalo, New York, because he was very near there at that time in Port Gibson. So you see exactly the sunrise that Hiram Edson saw. And where is the sun? The sun is in Virgo. And here we have the equinox point of the Church of Philadelphia. What did Ellen White say? What was the church at that time? It was the Church of Philadelphia, the living Church of Philadelphia in 1844. Where was the moon? Of course, the moon had already set, and we have to switch off the background, and we have to look where the moon was. And the moon was in this hour in Pisces, and even in the lying fish, exactly at the equinox point. How incredible is that, please? Because this Philadelphia one day would belong to the church that has died. Yeah? I do not say that's a martyr church, but I do say that's a church that went to the grave before Jesus would come. So here we have sun and moon together in the perfect positions for the two witnesses, the two candlesticks. Both sun and moon in the candlestick constellations. Now I brought us to Minneapolis in Minnesota, and to the 17th of October 1888, the day of the beginning of the General Conference session, when two witnesses, Wagner and Jones, brought their testimony. Let's look where sun and moon have been. Yeah, and you see it already. Again, sun was in Virgo, and here is the equinox point, and where was the moon? Exactly, again, at the other equinox point in the lying fish. Philadelphia church, together with the Smyrna candlestick. So, again, a prophecy in a certain form that this Philadelphia church would die and become Laodicea, but the faithful pioneers would go through as Smyrna and resurrect in a special resurrection. And finally, we come to our time, 2009, the 30th of December. And I brought us to Asunción, Paraguay, where I did the discovery. And I brought us to an exact moment that I could check out. And this is 15 hours, 57 or 3 p.m., 57 minutes. This is the download time of the map that I showed you before, with which I read the Orion clock. You see already where the sun is. The sun is in Sagittarius, and here is the solstice point. Yeah, this time we are in the area where I should in the next year, 2010, then find the correct crucifixion date. This is sun. Where's the moon? Yeah, as incredible as it seems to be, the moon was on that time exactly in the club of Orion. And here is the other solstice point, the other tree. So, and this is my discoveries. Exactly from that moment on, I started to write about these things. The Orion study, and little later in 2010, also the correct date of Jesus' crucifixion that deciphers then the rest of the revelation and the true calendar of God. In the email that I had showed you before, the second witness, Brother Gerhard, he started to investigate the Orion study on the 21st of December 2010. And he spent 3 whole days to reconstruct it, to buy a certain program, to look at all the things that I had described in the Orion study. And then he was convinced in these days to join me in the mission. And he wrote this important email to me. So I brought you to that date, the 21st of December 2010. And here we have the sun, of course, and the cross. Yeah, he was even new apostolic at that time, directly at the heart of the Father, and in the solstice point of the tree witness. And where was the moon? Yeah, it is incredible. If you look at that, I'm in Vienna. So let me say at 10 o'clock in the morning in Vienna, he started to research. And here was the moon directly in the club of Orion, as incredible as it may seem. Because it is exactly the same constellation sign, yeah? Sun in the cross in one of the tree witnesses, and the moon in the other tree in the club of Orion. The same constellation, the same arrangement that I have in my finding time of the Orion clock message. Yeah, when I was unstuck in my studies, it is really orchestrated by the grand hand of the grand maestro, the grand artist of the universe. Yeah, even if you add now 1 or 2 days, and then you see the moon is still in Gemini. And Gemini, as you know from the other time of Jesus, is the 2 men. And again, God had assembled 2 men to bring his last latter rain message to the world. Already in 2010 we were ready, and then we went out. As I explained already in other videos, on the 19th to the 20th of October 2016, we did our Church of Philadelphia prayer. And where is the sun? In Virgo. As I showed many times, it was even on the 19th, the rising sun in Virgo that fulfilled then the Revelation 7 prophecy. And here is, of course, the equinox point of the Church of Philadelphia, activated by the sun. And the Spirit of God, Jupiter, the Ruach, was also in Virgo. Again, a part of the fulfillment, because it says in Revelation 7 that this angel that commands the church to pray for more time has the seal of God in his hand. So this is what we know already. But where was the moon? Yeah, incredible. The moon was exactly in the club of Orion. And around this time, on the 20th, we received the last confirmative prayers of the church. This is the end point when the Church of Philadelphia had decided all around the world to pray. This certain sacrificial prayer to ask for more time and stay in this terrible, dark world for another at least 7 years, as we believed, and now it's even longer already. So I believe this should now be pretty convincing. Imagine always the two witnesses with their points are there. Yeah? The witnesses and the stars are the solstice and equinox points, and they always witnessed the most important moments of the Church of God in all the times, even beginning with the great master of all of us, Jesus Christ, and his times, yeah, where he was crucified. So this should now really convince, and now we are prepared to understand the rest. Now we are prepared to put the right emphasis to these witnesses that are so important. And we should not take any other planets to play their role. No, they suffice to play their own roles in the perfect way, as we saw now in the time frame of almost 2000 years. But before we go on in our study, just lean back, relax a couple of minutes, and watch the development and all the signs of the two witnesses in the time of the judgment. Everyone who has watched my videos, and I counsel you to do so and do your homework, knows this table about the time frames of the two witnesses of Revelation 11. We had covered the 2 times 1260 days in sackcloth that went from the 23rd of January 2010, when I first published the Orion study on the old website, lastcountdown.org, until the 16th of December 2016. On this date, we published the article that spoke about the Day of the Witnesses of our prayer on the 20th of October 2016. With this, we had finished our testimony on our old website and all the events that had taken place when we have been in sackcloth 2 times 1260 days. In the context of the two witnesses, where we saw so many signs, being in sackcloth clearly means that there are no signs. You cannot see these two witnesses on the heavens anymore. There is no sign for their beginning on the 23rd of January 2010. There is no sign in the middle point, and there is no sign for the 16th of December 2016 in sackcloth, hidden. Then came the 2 times 1290 days of the witnesses lying dead on the same street where their Lord was crucified. That was then running from the 16th of December 2016 to the 9th of January 2024. When being in sackcloth for the first time frame, the 2 times 1260 days for the two witnesses, meant that they were hidden, had no sign in the heavens, what would being dead mean? Even again, no signs, not in the beginning of the 2 times 1290 days, not in their middle and not in their end point. These two time frames are the development of the vaccinations and the outrolling of the vaccinations for the first wave. Now, we had then observed that on the 9th of January 2024, the comet K2 touched the second leg line of Orion. So we believed, look at the sign of the Son of Man in Orion. K2 had entered in December 2023 into Orion and touched the leg, the first leg, and then the second leg on the 9th of January. So this could be the standing up of the witnesses. And we had the idea to look in the then understood second witness, which was for us the horologium with its pendulum, and we understood the pendulum as the leg of the second witness. And we observed when would the comet E3 that was painting together with K2, the sign of the Son of Man, touch 2 times the pendulum of the horologium, and we understood that as the standing up of the second witness. I observed this went until the 28th of May 2024. And so we believed so. Then the two witnesses had stood up according to the text in Revelation 11. Later, we then found the 2 times 1335 days of waiting is over, which was taken again, as before, some time frames from the book of Daniel, Daniel 12. Wait, but 2 times because of 2 witnesses. And this we started together on the 16th of December 2016 with the time frame of the 2 times 1290 days when the witnesses were laying dead. So it's 90 days longer from 9th of January 2024 to the 8th of April 2024. This was the day of the solar eclipse that painted this famous X over the US. So we found this as a very important date. What we did not know at that time, when I made the videos about it, was that 8th of April also was the beginning of the trajectory of the comet C 2024 G3 Atlas. And this comet paints now a heart. And we made several videos after my videos about this heart sign that speaks then also to, as a last warning to the birds that are inside of the heart, that the time for them is come to eat a lot of flesh. So anyhow, we believed when this starts, or when this sign comes to its top in Sagittarius, when G3 is there together with the sun, then this must work out. And we believed that this would fit very well with the ascension of the two witnesses. But when I did this table, I had no idea about this G3 heart sign. So for me, not knowing about it, believing that the standing up of the witnesses already was done on the 28th of May 2024, I understood the other first part that speaks about the same hour there was an earthquake in a certain city, to be the hour that we see in the horologium that is painted by E3 one time around from the 28th of May 2024 to the 4th of June 2025. Yeah, but perhaps I was out of context there. And of course, the cometh quickly, this is taken from the verse when it says, and the second woe is over, the third woe cometh quickly. So when we know when the second woe is over, then cometh quickly, we had deciphered as being the rest of the days from the close of probation on the 4th of June 2025 to the 20th of June 2025. And I think this still stands. Where is the error? What has been proven to be correct and where is the error? The error must be in the standing up of the witnesses. These 140 days must have been wrong. Why? Orion, yes, is one of the parts of the witnesses. It's one of the trees. But it's not a candlestick. And on the other hand, we have left out Virgo, and we have left out even the crucifixion point on the solstice point of Sagittarius. Now that the G3 was recently. And we have left out not only Virgo as a candlestick, we have also left out the laying fish as a candlestick, or Pisces as the constellation of a candlestick. So we have left out 3 constellations that have been deciphered to be parts of the witnesses, and we had only Orion. So that must be the wrong part. And we have to re-understand the standing up of the witnesses to have a different playing out, a different scenery in the heavens. And it must be perhaps something much more clearer than what we thought would happen in Sagittarius with the 4 heavenly bodies walking through there in a certain time frame, that this is then the end of the standing up, respectively the ascending. We come then to different conclusions when we have the correct standing up of the witnesses. Then we come to different conclusions for the ascension of the 2 witnesses and for the same hour. So this is where we are now, and we have learned now in all these preparatory signs that I showed you that were accompanying Jesus' life and also the church in the judgment time, something similar must happen in the standing up time of the witnesses. I'm pretty sure that you cannot easily see the error in the table, because we overlooked it also for a pretty long time. All the other time frames that we have there have been deciphered chronologically with the time frames of Daniel 12. So this table should now bring clarity to the riddle. The 2 times 1260 days in sackcloth. This have been in Daniel 12, 7, the time, times, and half a time spoken to two witnesses, like in Revelation 11:3, the 1,200 days, the two witnesses got the power to prophesy. But in sackcloth, no signs in the four parts of the two witnesses. The 2 times 1290 days dead, when they have been dead, lying on the same street as their Lord, is in Daniel the next time frame that is visible or readable, and that's the 1,290 days. And this gave us the deciphering possibility of the 3 days and a half, which is not the normal time frame of 1260 days, but includes 1 year with a leap month. So 1290 days times 2. Now, all of a sudden, I have a blank field in Daniel 12 for the standing up of the witnesses. And that should not be so, right? So perhaps there is already an error. But I have a verse in Revelation 11 that we used. Not really. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them and they stood upon their feet. Revelation 11:11. We are searching for this time. And we have a blank there. We did not put the 1,335 days into their correct location. Therefore, we have an own row that says 2 times 1,335 days of waiting over. Blessed is he that waiteth. Wait. So after the 1,290 days, respectively the 2 times 1,290 days, there comes a waiting time. Yeah, the difference between 1,290 and 1,335 is 45 days, so 2 times it's 90 days. And even after 3 days and a half, so longer than 3 days and a half, and when you read in the Strongs what this after means, it means amid or longer than, or in this 45, respectively 90 days of waiting time, then the Spirit of life enters into the two witnesses. So what we have simply to do the association correctly, we have to put the standing up of the witnesses row together with the 2 times 1,335 days of waiting row. And then we have an association again between Daniel 12 and Revelation 11. Here was the error. We didn't do that. So we get after the end of the 1,290 days, 2 times, we get a waiting time of 90 days until the 8th of April 2024. And then we should see something like a standing up, something like a resurrection of the 4 parts of the witnesses from then on. Or amid, this after is amid, that means to the end of the 90 days of waiting time, we should start to see something as like something again in the witnesses, in these 4 parts, in these 4 constellations, that gives us a hint that they are now standing up. It must be the Spirit of God entering into them. We have to decipher what that was or is. Well, here was the error, and now I show you all this wonderful, great theater in heaven that is now displayed by God. And I have the honor to be the messenger who brings this spectacle to you now. So, dear friends, I brought you now again to the heavens where we have to look up. And I brought you to the 8th of April 2024, when the heart sign began, that we understood as the end of the 2 times 1,335 days of waiting. But the corresponding text of Revelation 11:11 tells us, and after or amidst the waiting time, or to the end, against the end of the waiting time, we should see the Spirit of life from God entering into 4 parts, or into at least 1 part of the 2 witnesses. And I cannot see here God. I cannot see the spirit of life in this heart sign at the moment. I see a comet that could be a spirit of life, but it does not enter at that time in any of the 4 constellations that form the 4 part of the 2 witnesses. Let's look where the sun is. The sun is the bridegroom. It's God, is a symbol for Jesus. Where is the sun at that time? Oh yeah, that becomes more interesting, as I would say. The sun is indeed in Pisces, and Pisces is one of the candlesticks. Okay, the sun itself is the bridegroom, it's God, but is it the spirit of life? We should see a little earlier something that fulfills that this sign would have revived. That something very special happened, something that was sent by God, by the sun, as we could believe. And we need, of course, proof for that. Okay, we see that the sun already passed the equinox point. Let's go back to the equinox point if we see something happening. Yeah. If you are very, very attentive, then you can see happening something. I'll show you more clearly. Indeed, I see the comet 12P Pons Brooks 2024 at the head of the rising fish. And this is exactly at the equinox date in the lying fish, when the bridegroom was in the lying fish. Can you see it? Pons Brooks started to enter even a little earlier. On the 15th of March, it entered at the head part of the rising fish, which is a resurrection fish, spirit of life, and they stood upon their feet. We have the activation from the 15th or 20th of March on, equinox point, exactly with the lying fish activated by the sun and the resurrected fish or the ascension fish activated by the devil's comet. Isn't it funny that the world calls Pons Brooks because of the horns the devil's comet? And you can look it up in Google, but I have to make it a little shorter video. You can look it up. It made headlines at that time because it had just erupted, was so clearly visible. And this is exactly the time when the press was full with this comet. But what happened then on the 8th of April? Look at that. So we go forward, and then comes the moon, of course. And it's on the 8th of April, we had the solar eclipse. So again, a big hint, hey, now the waiting time is over. The US will be X'd out. Babylon will fall and the witnesses stand up. That was one of the 4 parts of the 2 witnesses. Yeah, now we understand perhaps we have to follow the trajectory of the sun. And then we would get the rest of the story of the standing up, because all 4 parts must stand up. Yeah, let's follow the sun then to the next constellation that plays a role. And this is, of course, where the solstice point is in Orion. Yeah, I spoke about this situation that was the crowning of Orion. Yeah. In a different Bible verse. And when we go with the sun directly there, where is the spirit of life? I have still the trajectory of K2 painted here. Let's see where K2 was at that time. Directly in the head part of Orion. Remember, K2 went into the Orion constellation in December 2023. Then he stood up on his feet, but he was not lifted up, as I understand it now, because we had the comet Pons Brooks 12P we had in the head part of the ascension fish. And now we have K2 finally in the head part directly of Orion. This is what God meant with standing up. It lifts it up from the feet to the head. And then the comet, the prominent comet in the constellation, will be at the head part. So here we have the solstice point, the bridegroom activating the spirit of life, K2, that entered now into, that lifted up now Orion upon his feet up to the head, stood up. Okay, is it possible that all four parts have the prominent comets that we spoke about in videos and articles? Is it possible? So the next one that would come would be, Virgo. Let's go there. Follow the sun to Virgo. And now let's observe what will happen, okay? I go day-wise. Can you see something? Look here. Even prominently painted. I go back to the equinox point. Here, when the sun was at the equinox point, in the sextants, A3 Juchinstan Atlas started to develop a tail. And now it went into the head part of Virgo. Isn't that incredible? How much did we speak about that comet to be the comet that was the loud voice of the angel of Revelation 18:1. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Yeah, what part of the two witnesses is Virgo? Virgo is Philadelphia. And this comet we understood to be the voice of the fourth angel's message. And I made videos about it. And now we know, wow, that was the standing up of Philadelphia, of this candlestick. And was even lit, this candlestick, as before the rising fish was lit by 12P, von Brooks. Can you see it? It's incredible. So, how probable do you believe these things are? How probable is that? That we have one comet after the other just activating these Mazaros constellations that are part of the four parts of the two witnesses. Impossible. Any coincidence excluded if we find a fourth one. And what would be the fourth one? Oh yeah, we must come to the tree where Jesus was crucified. I ought to see it already. What is there? Let's go there. Follow the sun. Now let me activate the comet that paints this red heart trajectory. Of course, it is G3, the spirit of life, the heart of Jesus that comes now. And we recently made the two videos about it. Pastor Ray made one, and the other witness, Gerhard, did also one or two. Now here is a G3 even in the heart of the Father where Jesus was crucified. 2nd of January. And a couple of days later, Donald Trump on the 6th was confirmed as president. Then on the 7th of January, now really the witnesses are all stood up with their trees. The candlesticks are lit and the trees are lit like Christmas trees. And now started the Los Angeles fires. And Los Angeles, sorry for doing this pun, was also lit, no? And a lot of trees there. So, and then we have prominently Geoffrey standing in the sun and proclaiming the terrible ordeal that the supper of the birds is ready. And this was then a couple of days before Donald Trump was inaugurated on the 20th as president. And then we have Capricornus activated, Geoffrey and Sun in Capricornus. And this is the moment when we have a Revelation 13 moment, where there is the second beast from the earth, from the USA, that has two horns like a lamb. Here are the two horns, but it speaks like a dragon, yeah, with this fish tail, Cetus, the old snake, the sea monster tail. All the four parts of the two witnesses have now stood up. You have now seen prominent comets on the four parts of the two witnesses, on their heads. Doesn't that remind you on a certain moment? I'm reminded on Pentecost. I'm reminded on the tongues like flames. When I read this verse in Acts 2, which reads, "And there appeared unto them cloven tongues, like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them," then I had always a little bit stomach ache, because in many cultures in the world, cloven or divided tongues, and to speak with such a tongue means to speak lies. And why would God use such a symbol for his Holy Spirit, for the great gift of his Holy Spirit, even on Pentecost? And I was always wondering about that. Some, as my wife, understood this cloven tongues as that it was the tongues were distributed among the apostles. But this is not what the text really says. It really says cloven tongues. It's divided tongues, like the tongue of a snake is divided, a liar. So why would God use this? I would like to show you 4 pictures in a row of the comets that have been set upon the heads of the 4 parts of the 2 witnesses. There was 12 Pete Pons Brooks. There was K2. There was the comet set upon the head of Philadelphia, A3 Juchinshan. And there was this last comet, G3, that paints the heart sign. And all comets have developed cloven tails, like fire. And now we understand that the first Pentecost was a prefiguring of the great prophesied Pentecost, which is the latter rain. There will come the latter rain, another Pentecost with a great outpouring of the Holy Spirit. In the latter days, the latter rain. And this latter rain will then ripen the fruit. And then it can be brought in to the barn. And this will be the next part that I would like to speak about. And I'm also reminded on another prophecy that is prophesied in Joel 2:28 and repeated in Acts 2:17. And it shall come to pass in the last days. Are we in the last days? Saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, the spirit of life. And your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. I'm an old man, and I had a dream. And it is mentioned in Pastor Ray's last video. I had this dream about the heart sign. A couple of weeks or a month before, it was then understood by us. With all my heart, with all my heart, and with all my heart. Now, recording this video took already a couple of days, and we know now that Comet G3, who paints this heart of Jesus, has broken up. And I believe that in the next video, Jesus' second witness, Brother Gerhard, will talk more about the situation in which we are now in, but you can contemplate what I told you right now. Let me say a word about the comet K2. All other comets, they were really setting upon the 4 points of the two witnesses being in their perihelial time, and they had developed a coma, and they were really looking like these divided tongues. But K2 not. It had been discovered in the year 2017, see 2017 K2, Pan-stars, but its perihelion was in December 19, 2022. So it was then visible in December 2022 and until February 2023 with its coma divided tongues. Yeah, but in this time, what did start exactly in that time? Why were we led to this comet? Yeah, it was the time when we started to see the sign of the Son of Man. From March 2023 on, shortly before, the press was full with this K2 comet. And the sign of the Son of Man began to be painted then on the 5th of March or 12th of March 2023. And then K2 later came into Orion, and then it set upon its head. So it's absolutely valid. And it really shows how the latter rain indeed started with the sign of the Son of Man. And then we're missing 3 other comets to sit as the divided tongues upon the heads of other 3 points of the two witnesses. And it's really interesting that one of our members had also received another dream. And he said, I have to go to the island of Nevis to unbind 3 other sheep. And we never understood that very well. And now I understand what it was, because this was the discovery of those points of the two witnesses that I showed you now in this video, and exactly their divided cloven tongues upon their heads. I more and more understand the book of Revelation to be a huge Rubik cube, and to bring all the colors into their right position so that every single side is harmonious is a very, very difficult task, because it's mixed. It's mixed up like a Rubik cube. And often people achieve to have one color on one side perfectly correct, but all other 5 sides are still mixed up. And so this is now the big question. Did we put now all the sides already in the perfect color? I don't believe so. We have still many tasks to do. The first thing is we should also recapitulate and say, which loud voice did we hear on the 21st of December 2024 when the sun was in the solstice point at the cross of Jesus? This is one of the questions. Yeah? We said perhaps it was the voice that shouts, "Come up hither," in Revelation 11 for the ascension of the two witnesses. But this cannot be right, because we see now that the two witnesses just had stood up completely on the 8th or 9th of January, when G3 was in the head part of Sagittarius. So this was then too early. But what loud voice was this then? Must be any of the important loud voices. Let's go to Revelation 16, and here you see where this voice was. And I heard a great voice out of the temple, and we said that's the temple area there, because there is Sagittarius, a star, a symbol for the Father, saying to the 7 angels, which we decipher to be Orion, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And then the first went. And so this is then the time frame when we had on the 6th of January the confirmation of the presidency of Donald Trump. And he is the authors in the first plague that came over the earth. And this goes on until the 5th plague and even longer. And this is the destroyer, as I so many times said. Let me bring G3 to the head part of Sagittarius to see exactly when all 4 parts of the 2 witnesses had stood up. So here's the head part. It could also be the 9th, but it's better the 8th. We have exactly been in the head part. And the 8th is the date when all the reporting about the LA fires came out. So this is the hour in Revelation 18, the first hour of the burning of Babylon. And this is when Michael stood up in form of the 2 witnesses, all parts of the 2 witnesses. This is the standing up of Michael of Daniel 12. Yeah? Let's read the verse. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered. That's the good news. Everyone that shall be found written in the book. And here we come to the special resurrection. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, not all, but many. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So we have also a resurrection of bad guys on the earth. And I believe this has to do with these UAP sightings or whatever, and these eggs that we see, birds and devils, and birds and snakes both lay eggs. And then people report when they came to these eggs that they have been possessed, and that's evil possession, of course. That could be already a real sign of a resurrection, special resurrection of evil. How far have we come now in the deciphering or in the solution of the Rubik Cube side that belongs to Revelation 11? Here's an enhanced table. In the first section, times of the 2 witnesses, almost nothing has changed of what we already knew. I only added at the end 1 row, Revelation 11:11, the understanding of and after of the verse with which the verse begins means even among. And how long is this among? We know this since long, it's 90 days longer than the 2 times 1290 days. So that went from the 9th of January 2024 to the 8th of April 2024. 3 months. Then the standing up of the 2 witnesses is then deciphered, I showed you already, and a requisite for this is that the sun must be present in the constellation, simply because the verse says, and the spirit of life from God. So from God means sun must be there. It has to be in the constellation, and then we have to observe the corresponding comet when it reaches or is at the head part. And we can go through this rapidly. In Pisces, this was the first one, was 12P Pons Brooks 2024. It had already entered at the head of the ascending fish on the 15th of March 2024, and the sun was already there. But the sun reached the equinox point just on the 20th of March. You could also put there the 20th of March. but it's up to you. I believe this is correct to put the 15th of March because Pisces was already activated. And we have to check, is the 15th of March in between the time of even among of Revelation 11:11? Is the 15th of March 2024 between the 9th of January and the 8th of April? Yes, and it is. In these 90 days, the witnesses began to stand up. In this case, even Pisces, even Smyrna, and the church that is alive, signified in Pisces, they stood up in this time frame. Next point is a 3-point. Orion. Comet K2 re-entered Orion at its head because there was a little spared part on the head where it left Orion, went into Taurus officially, and then re-entered at the head part of Orion on the 22nd of June 2024. This is the moment when Orion had completely stood up. Yeah? Even if K2 already entered Orion on the 15th of December 2023, but this is the moment when the head was up, when the head was activated, and the spirit of life has completely filled Orion. Then we have Virgo as an equinox point. Comet A3, Chuchinshan, Atlas, entered Virgo at the head, and this was at the borderline of the head in Virgo on the 4th of October 2024. The last one is a tree, and it's the tree where Jesus was crucified, and that's in Sagittarius, and that's of course also where the Father is. Sagittarius, a star, the temple area, most important. So this is comet G3 that paints the heart sign, and it reached the head of Sagittarius exactly on the 8th of January 2025 when we had the reports of the Los Angeles fires. So now we have a gray area, and I titled it Open Riddles. This is now the great voice from heaven. When will we hear it? When will the two witnesses ascend in a cloud and their enemies will behold them? And then we have the next verse that speaks about that in the same hour was a great earthquake and the 10th part of the city fell. And this is, of course, the true beginning, or really the first thing that we can see of the sixth trumpet in which we are since the Assad regime fell in December 2024. This is now exactly the point when people will hear the trumpet loudly sound. And then it must take a while because this is only a 10th part of Babylon that falls there. And the second woe is over is the next verse, and this means that then the whole sixth trumpet must have worked out, and a third part of humanity already must have perished. And when that has happened, then there is a silent phase, and then the third woe comes quickly. And this is, I believe, therefore it's green, already deciphered. This is then from the close of probation on the 4th of June 2025 to the 20th of June 2025. We can also say that the second woe is over is most probably exactly on the very same day, on the 4th of June 2025, when probation closes. So that means we have 3 gray fields open to find the correct date. And that shouldn't be too difficult, should it? Because it is simply so that we have to follow the rhythm now of the Revelation 11 4-part 2 witnesses prophecy. The rhythm is every single equinox point, every single solstice point has importance, as we saw in the standing up of the witnesses. So the next point would be where? Yeah, it would again be in Pisces. And as we heard a great voice from heaven saying to the angels of wrath, go and pour out on the solstice point, so we will hear now the great voice of God, the Son in this case, from the next point of the 4 parts of the 2 witnesses, which is the equinox point in Pisces. Let's go there. I brought you to the 17th of March 2025, when the Sun is shortly before the equinox point, so that you would be able to see the equinox point. So, but of course the Sun marches forward, and then on the 20th of March we are directly on the equinox point. I have now chosen Basse-Terre, this is St. Kitts and Nevis where I lived, for the timing, but it doesn't matter, you can also use any other timing to see this point and the things that I want to explain now. Indeed, there's also Venus present in Pisces, because Venus is also a symbol for the church, very important. And there is also Mercury, but it's retrograde, so you cannot see it at that moment very well. But it will come up behind the Sun in some days. Yeah, so this is the moment of the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, or the autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. But this occurs every year, of course. Is this already enough to say this is the moment when we hear the great voice from heaven come up hither? I don't believe so. There must be something special. So when we look some days further, the moon comes, and we have there a solar eclipse, at least a partial one. And this happens in the lying fish, as you can see. And this is a corresponding solar eclipse to the 8th of April eclipse of 2024, when the 2 times 1335 days had finished. Can you remember where this solar eclipse took place? Let's go back a year. And then, of course, we have to bring the moon there. And this was exactly also in the lying fish. That was the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, when the 1335 days finished. The heart sign began. And now, in 2025, we have another solar eclipse in Pisces, in the lying fish. We come full circle. And this, I believe, is the moment when both witnesses have heard the voice of God come up hither. But where is the other witness? Okay, Pisces was Smyrna. Yeah, we saw there Venus, Mercury. We see also 2 fish there that could be the 2 witnesses. But isn't the lying fish more the Smyrna one that resurrects then and ascends? So one witness, 1 candlestick in 2 different positions. What is about Philadelphia? Yeah, every single solar eclipse has a corresponding lunar eclipse, normally. When is this? So we can look it up in this chart here, and there we see on which date it happens. So it is the 13th to the 14th of March, when we have the lunar eclipse. So this is the moment when the blood moon becomes visible, at least in Basse-Terre where we are, and also in Paraguay. Follow me, and minute-wise I show you how the moon becomes a blood moon. So here's the reddish glow. Question is, where does this happen? When in doubt, then zoom out. Yeah, look at that. This blood moon occurs at the head star of Virgo, very near the other equinox point. Yeah, you could say, okay, the moon belongs still to the borderlines of Leo, but compare, this is the distance between the moon and the first star of Virgo, and this is a much longer distance to Chertan or the nebula in the Leo constellation. So even astronomer would say this blood moon occurs in Virgo, yeah, even if we have these artificial lines here. So we have again Philadelphia, Virgo, in the sign, the corresponding lunar eclipse to the partial solar eclipse in Pisces 2 weeks later. But as we have learned in this video in so many signs about the two witnesses constellations, we have to have, so that it is valid, in another constellation of the four parts of the witnesses, the sun. And the question is here simply, is the sun already in Pisces on the 14th of March? Let's look it up. Here we are. Yes, the sun is already in Pisces. It had entered Pisces. So we have both churches, Philadelphia and Smyrna, involved in this great sign. And this ends when they both have heard the voice. So this is the moment on the 29th of March when we have completed these signs. And of course, it alludes to Acts chapter 2, 19 and 20. And I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Verse 20, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before that great and notable day of the Lord come. Perhaps we are now able to find out what this Joel and repeated in Acts prophecy meant. What is this great and terrible day? When does it start? What is it really? Perhaps we can find it out now with all this knowledge. Remember very well this partial solar eclipse on the 29th of March. But is this exactly the moment when the ascension happens? I don't believe so. As explained, we have here a great voice and we have also a cloud, but still, we have to bring the cloud to the ascending fish, so that also is fulfilled the part of the text that says, and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, right? So, when is this? We have to go forward with the moon, and just a day and a half or something, until we are in the ascending fish with the moon. And the moon just is in the phase of having its first sickle. We come to that in a moment. This is the moment when they ascended up in a cloud. I showed you what once the cloud was in the ascension scene of Jesus Christ himself. Can you remember it? I told you to note well. It was the moon. And remember, there's also the Andromeda Nebula that we deciphered many years even ago as also being a cloud, see, a galaxy, also something like a cloudy object in the heavens. But this is the moon exactly as it was in the ascension scene of Jesus Christ. So the 30th is the date when we have sun, moon, Venus, and here you can see a little bit Mercury, all in the two fish. Perfect. So this is the absolute rapture sign for the two witnesses. But another first part tells us, and their enemies beheld them. I bring you to a different point, to the solstice point, where we had the enemies of Jesus when he was crucified. Yeah? And these were Ophiuchus, the snake bearer. This was Sagittarius that pointed with the spear, respectively with the bow, to Jesus' side. And this was, of course, Scorpius with the sting, that sting of death. These were the enemies of Jesus. But who are the enemies of Pisces, representing the followers of Jesus, the fish, the Christians? Who are the enemies of them? When I look around, I can see Cetus, the sea monster, that we deciphered long time ago as even being a department of the United Nations, but it is the old serpent. Yeah, the old serpent. This is Leviathan in the Bible. Yeah, and as you can see, the two fish, interestingly, are bound to the neck or whatever it is of the sea monster. They are bound. And the question is, do we have any hint anywhere in Scripture, and I include now prophetic scripture of Ellen G. White, do we have a hint that these fish are bound by the enemy? What are fish Christians that are bound to an enemy? They are bound by sin, perhaps, yeah, to a master. And then when they are bound by sin to a master, Paul explains to us they are slaves. They are slaves to sin. But when they resurrect, they are liberated. That's a liberation. When they are resurrected and when they are ascend, they are unbound, then this is something like a special ascension, special resurrection, and special ascension. So let's have a look if we find proof for this scene and this to be the enemies as the slave master and the fish that is then liberated from his master. The quote that I mean is from Early Writings, page 35, paragraph 1. And it reads, "Then commenced the Jubilee, when the land should rest. I saw the pious slave rise in triumph and victory and shake off the chains," here are the chains, "that bound him, while his wicked master, Cetus, was in confusion, Babylonian confusion, and knew not what to do. For the wicked could not understand the words of the voice of God." What did I say, what we just heard? The great voice of God that says, "Come up hither." "Soon appeared the great white cloud." Just then appears the great white cloud of the sign of the Son of Man. We know that's K2, in a certain position in Orion. "It looked more lovely than ever before. On it sat the Son of Man. At first we did not see Jesus on the cloud, but as it drew near the earth, we could behold his lovely person. This cloud, when it first appeared, was the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. The voice of the Son of God called forth the sleeping saints." So I do not go on. I want you to see that there are two different risings. First, I saw the pious slave rise in triumph and victory and shake off the chains that bound him. That's the situation that we see here in Pisces. And then we have Jesus coming in the clouds, and then we have the calling forth of the sleeping saints, clothed with glorious immortality. And then the living saints were changed in a moment and were caught up with them into the cloudy chariot. Should we now check it? We believe that this situation of the first resurrection and rapture happens on the 20th of June. Do we have, again, something like a sign there? Okay, let's go there. That is the 20th of June. Oh, I see already something. Just a couple of hours later on the 20th of June. Can you see it? Here we are. The moon is again in the rising fish. Wow. And where is the sun? Yeah, of course, on the solstice point. A perfect sign of the seventh trumpet. That's also in chapter 11. I have to tell you why I always use the Rubik cube as an example for the riddle of Revelation. Because so many times we had one side in the same color as it should be, but then perhaps we had a second side and we had a third side, but when we tried then to understand the fourth side, then we mixed up again a side that was already solved, and this is exactly here the case. We believed the coronation of Jesus would take place in February, with the horologium having E3 on the top. And then that would be the moment when the seventh trumpet sounds. No, necessarily, because this is still all in heaven. But the seventh trumpet text says that the first proclamation of the seventh trumpet indeed is, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. So it's about the earth. And just when Jesus comes, he has won the war of Revelation 17. The Lamb has overcome the enemies, and then he is also Lord of this earth. And that's then the seventh trumpet. And then you see all the worship of the saints in heaven, in Revelation 19 and also in Revelation 11 in the seventh trumpet text. So it's very late, the seventh trumpet, and so I believe we put now the seventh trumpet in its right side of the Rubik cube. And that means it belongs to the first resurrection and the great rapture. While we have something like a prefiguring of this great rapture in Pisces in March. So we go back and bring the moon again in, and a couple of hours. So then you have the moon exactly on the rising fish. So this is what I wanted to explain as the pre-rapture, special resurrection and so on sign that we have since years. Now, the pious slave rises. Yeah, but what did we not cover? And what did we not understand from this quote of Ellen G. White? It starts with the words, then commenced the Jubilee. Then the land should rest. What do you believe? Is this a very special date here, the 30th of March? Yes, it is. And indeed, it is the beginning day of the Jubilee. I can show you that with an astronomical calculation program that we use since the beginning of this ministry. It's called Accurate Times, and I want to know the crescent visibility on the 30th of March 2025. And when I check out could the moon have been seen on the 29th already, then I get a map, and it's all red and blue, no sighting possible. So what is then about the 30th? Let's draw this map. Oh, wow, everything, Jerusalem, Paraguay, all is green. So in the evening in Jerusalem of the 30th, we have the sighting of the new moon of the first month, which is the beginning of the year. But it is a special year. Have you seen my video series about the Great Orion Cycle and the Jubilee? There I showed you that this year beginning, exactly that evening of that day in Jerusalem, is the beginning of the Jubilee. Exactly at that time. Now, as I told you, I took Bastel here, and it's 11 hours in Bastel, but in Jerusalem it is already the evening. Let's go there. So we are now on the 30th still, but now Jerusalem time, 1737. Let's switch on the background. And can you see what I see? The moon is just up and the sun is just down. This is the very moment when the Jubilee New Year happens. And just when the moon disappears on the horizon, then it is in the rising fish. That's the beginning of the Jubilee. Ellen White was completely and totally right. We have here the sighting in Jerusalem of the Jubilee New Year moon. How great is that? So the Jubilee begins and then the pious slave rises. Philadelphia and Smyrna, these two candlesticks, this time represented both in Pisces. So should we check out now the next gray field, which speaks about when is the great earthquake? Yeah, it speaks about and in the same or at the same hour. About which hour do we speak when we look only in Pisces? And then we have the hour and the day clock hand of the father's clock of the Mazaros. Yeah? So an hour is always shown by the moon. In which hour are we? Have you watched my videos about the last countdown or the great marvelous sign? Then you know that the moon in this time is the bowl of wrath that is poured out. And in this case, it was just together with the sun, if you remember. And this is the fourth bowl that has been poured out. And the fourth bowl of wrath reads in Revelation 16:8, and the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun. And power was given unto him to scourge men, him. Interesting, no? The sun is him, Jesus. To scourge men with fire. And men were scourged with great heat and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues. And they repented not to give him glory. I was thinking a little bit about what this could be. Of course, it could be a solar flare or whatever that destroys a technology on the earth or whatever. But I think we have now deciphered already the source in the first plague to have been Donald Trump. What could be a law that scorches men that has to do with the sun, the Sunday law? It's a speculation again, but that would be the perfect point for a Sunday law. Smyrna, the early Adventist church pioneers or Sabbath keepers in 1844 around, are raptured, and Philadelphia is also raptured, the Sabbath keepers that have the seal as Philadelphia from Revelation 3:12. They are also raptured. And then who are left are the unfaithful Sunday keepers that now are under the Sunday law, which is then the hour of temptation, remember hour and hour, of temptation that comes over all the world. A worldwide Sunday law development, probably going out or most securely going out from the US. It's a possibility, or it's anything else, but this is the beginning of the hour of temptation. Revelation 11:13 speaks about the great earthquake. That has, of course, to do with this resurrection moment, the same hour. And then a 10th part of the city fell. So we are in the hour of the fourth bowl of wrath. When has this hour finished? It has finished when the moon comes back only 5 days later to the club area of Orion. Then it has ended, because then begins the hour of the fifth bowl of wrath. And this fifth is then a darkening all over the world. So probably a development of that has already happened. A Sunday law worldwide development. And then comes the sixth bowl, and in the sixth bowl the evil entities, they decide to kill everybody who is not complying with this law. And when I see the radicalism of Mr. Trump, then I believe that he could be one of these three entities. It's almost sure. Yeah, you know that the false prophet, Donald Trump, is part of these three entities. Read the text by yourself. So when we want to finally bring the prophecy in the sixth seal about the kings of the earth, the slaves, everybody shouting that the great and terrible day of the Lord has begun to its right place, then we simply have to understand what Revelation 11:13 really expresses about fear. It says there clearly, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. So there's a great fear on the earth. And I can imagine when we have such a great earthquake, and if it's really huge, if it is perhaps over the whole world, not as big as the last earthquake for the first resurrection, but if these two witnesses resurrect and ascend, that's an earthquake that will wake up even virgins that sleep. This is then the Revelation 6:14 moment, and the heaven departed as a scroll. Because about what did we all the time speak? About the heavens. And when we depart, also the heavens depart like a scroll, like our writings, when it is rolled together. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And many times is said, the mountains are a symbol for the Cordillera area in Paraguay, a mountainous area. And the island, you know that I live on an island because I was called by God about 1.5 years ago to an island. So they moved out of their places. That's then when the kings of the earth and the great man and the rich man and the chief captains and the mighty man and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come. And who shall be able to stand? In the great day of the 70th Jubilee year, since the great Orion clock has proclaimed it. So this is now my view of these last things that have to happen. And to end this video, I want to give you a thought. Jesus spoke about the midnight cry in a parable. And it's the parable, of course, of the 10 virgins. 5 of them have been wise. 5 of them have not been so wise. They're called the foolish virgins that did not have enough Holy Spirit in their vessels. And you know what happened to the 5 foolish ones? They were then left out when the door closed. We know now that fits perfectly into this time frame because the door closes on the 4th of June 2025. So from 30th of March, when the Jubilee begins, to then must be the time of the people having seen something terrible coming over the earth, respectively even seen a partial rapture, a special resurrection and partial rapture of Smyrna and Philadelphia. But we have always nibbled on that because Jesus is the greatest of all prophets, aren't he? And why would he take 10 virgins? That was always a question. Okay, 10 commandments, then 5 are foolish and 5 are, no, that does not fit. No? So it cannot have to do with the Ten Commandments. And it can also not have to do with the 5 world religions, for example, because they are virgins. They do not think that a Buddhist or an Islamist is a virgin in the eyes of Jesus. They're all virgins. They're all Christians. So, why 5 and 5? I listened recently to a sermon of Pastor David Gates, and he brought me to that idea. He said, when the Sunday law comes, then there is the great division on earth. Then all Christians will be divided in 2 camps. One camp is those that understand now, because of all the happenings around, that keeping the Sunday is sin, instead of keeping the Sabbath. And then, of course, there are the other ones that have not enough oil in their vessels, Holy Spirit, to understand the Sabbath importance. And this is the great division. So if we would have 5 churches, they would divide in 5 foolish parts and 5 wise parts. Now, in Revelation we have 7 churches, right? Exactly. But 2 of them are without reproach. And they are the 2 candlesticks of Revelation 11, right? Exactly. So Smyrna is without reproach, the church that has been dead, had died in the judgment before Jesus would come. And then there is Philadelphia that goes through alive, but is not the 144,000, but a special church with all the seals of God, the 3 seals, different seals, with all the understanding, alive on the earth. This is not the 144,000, I say it again. The 144,000 have to do a great work in the earth from the 30th of March on until Jesus comes, or respectively until the 4th of June when the door of probation closes. So 2 churches will be raptured. 2 churches must anywhere have disappeared when Jesus' loud cry and midnight cry prophecy starts. They have disappeared anywhere. Now we know where. They have been pre-raptured on the 30th of March 2025, when the Jubilee began. The pious slave rose. So it's left on the earth 5 of the churches, and each and every one of these 5 churches has a reproach, but also a counsel. So, read the 5 churches. Read the prophecies of them. Have you lost your first love? Find it again. Read what the counsel is. Have you bought gold from Jesus? Have you understood the messages that I was given? Buy the time out. Buy gold from Jesus. Have you been always against time setting like the church of Sardis and did not know the time of the visitation? Then stop shouting against time setting and know now the day and the hour of the great rapture and Jesus' second coming. It is all open to you. If you are in one bed with Thyatira because of fornication and lust, stop doing the things that are not valuable in the eyes of our great Lord Jesus Christ. Be holy as he is holy. At least try with all your might. I would better say, don't try it with your own might. Try it with the Lord's might. Pray daily that you may be found worthy to get the great inheritance, eternal life, and sit together with our wonderful Lord Jesus Christ on one table. And then, I believe, latest, we meet again.